Moving on. Those Las Vegas Raiders
Yes, consistently been pretty terrible. I've written down here that John Madden just keeps rolling in his grave.
just keeps rolling.
They are consistently bad. Last year, 8 wins, 9 losses, 23rd in passing yards per game, 30th best in rushing
That
yards per
is
game, though.
wild.
23rd in points scored. They had a bad offense. They had an offensive-minded head coach to start last year, Josh McDaniels. He was fired after a 3-5 start. I didn't see any notable injuries that I wanted to put down here. I know guys like Jacoby Myers missed some time, but I didn't really see anything that stuck out as this is really hurting the team that we need to focus on. I think we
Yeah.
can look at these other notable storylines and say this was more likely what the problem was. This team went into last year with Jimmy G as their quarterback. He has been cut. Their head coach has been fired. I think that a lot of the bad news and bad feelings surrounding the Raiders kind of just resets this year and they go forward. So I think a lot of that will be left in the past.
Yeah. Moving on here, let's talk about that coaching staff. He said already McDaniels is out. They brought in Getsy. Is that going to be any better, you think? This really feels like kind of a toss-up sort of situation.
That's Luke Getsy coming over from the Bears to be offensive coordinator. Antonio Pierce, interim head coach, is staying on as head coach. Is it going to be better? Man, I don't know.
That really felt like lightning in a bottle when they had Antonio Pierce in there. You know, you had the whole locker room behind him. It'll be really fun if they can keep that heat. That'll be really cool. Being a Bears fan, I don't believe in Luke Getsy at all, but Antonio Pierce maybe.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Let's cover this position by position, then we can kind of talk about how these changes might affect things or what is going to get better or worse compared to last year. Offensive line in 2023 was rated as, the site I use had them rated as a great line. Their right guard and right tackle will probably be different this year. So if you're looking at a great line, changing 2 spots provides some opportunity for change, for potentially getting worse, potentially getting better. They drafted 2 guys in rounds 2 and 3 to start and fill depth for those roles. So it's not a huge hole, but we also don't totally know how those guys are going to shake out. Quarterback, they are moving on from Jimmy Garoppolo. They have signed Gardner Minshew II. I think
that's for a fully guaranteed deal for 2 years, I believe, right?
Is it fully guaranteed?
Yes, fully guaranteed is what I read.
I think the way that shakes out for their room, though, that still leaves them open to just draft someone next year. And I think that left them, if someone had fallen to them in the draft this year, they probably would have considered it.
And Gardner Minshew already lives in a van, so he'd be cool with it.
Just drive on right over there. Yeah. So quarterback room, the coaching staff has said they're not sure who the starter is between Gardner Minshew or second-year quarterback Aiden O'Connell. So for consensus ranks, we just kind of wait until that shakes out over the summer for that to settle in. Last year in Indianapolis, Gardner Minshew was quarterback 21, and that would be over 15 starts. 2 starts by, 13 starts.
13, yeah.
Richardson started 4 games, finished 2 of them. So that would be 14 starts from Minshew. So you might bump him up a little bit more. He's a QB2 in 2 quarterback leagues. And then I think we'll just go similar to Denver, position by position, and talk about how the quarterback affects him and how the changes will affect things.
Yeah, so what does the running back room look like now?
Josh Jacobs is gone in free agency to the Packers. They drafted Dylan Laube, not sure, in the 6th round. And the way I describe it is they just don't really have an established guy here. So Zamir White has been on the team. He's being ranked as running back 22 right now, and I think that's wild. We covered that when we were talking about the Broncos. when I'm looking at this roster, I don't know how you can say this is a team with Zamir White and Alexander Madison and not remember what was being said last year with Alexander Madison. He was on the Vikings for a few years with Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook leaves. It's just Madison there. People think he's the next guy up. He's the only one left. They're going into the season with him, so he must be good or he'll get opportunities. And if Zamir White's bad, they'll just go to Alexander Madison. Last year, the Vikings traded for Cam Akers. There's no reason that the Raiders wouldn't do something similar. Go to the 6th-round rookie, sign a late offseason cut, Labor Day weekend cut guy. I'm not going to be drafting Zamir White at all. He had 100 attempts last year, 450 yards. It's a 4.5 yard per carry average, but that's not a big enough sample size to really say that he's great or good or worth drafting. It's not a risk that I'll be taking.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I mean, I know that you have a new coaching staff and whatever, but in that leaves it out in the air even more. But if any of these guys start to pop off, just grab them in free agency. I don't really expect any of these running backs to really pop off, though.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to draft Zamir White, but there's guys like this every year that the story is he's the only one there, so he's going to get opportunities, so I got to draft him, but they've never shown themselves to be good, and those guys just get moved off of.
Yeah. So let's jump over to the wide receiver position here as I clear my throat.
Yes. Davante Adams, old as dirt now, consensus rank number 10. He's an amazing receiver. I think this is a great rank. Looking at guys around him, we're really just picking nits here, saying like Brandon Ayuk is 9. I could see Davante Adams over that. Puka Nacua at 8. I could see Davante Adams over that. If you pick those guys ahead of Davante Adams, that's fine. Not a ton to say here. Grab him. The age doesn't scare me. The quarterback doesn't scare me. He's going to draw a lot of targets. He gets open, he catches the ball. He's great. Other receivers on the team, Jacoby Myers, he's consensus rank 49. I think that just talks about how deep receiver is. Like Jacoby Myers can score points. He has been good on the Patriots in horrible situations. He was fine last year other than injuries. There's just so many other guys I would rather have over him. He's a good player. If he has 80 yards and a touchdown in a week, that's totally plausible. I could see that happening a couple times this year, but I could see that happening more times for a lot more guys.
Yeah. So do you think Davante Adams wide receiver 1 for you pretty easily? A few leagues, depending on the size of the league, I guess?
Yeah. I think he's at rank 10 when we're talking about the splits between wide receiver 1 overall points scored and the points of Davante Adams. I could see it within the range of possibility that he's right up there in points. So even if he finishes as 6 or 7, that he's getting enough points that it doesn't matter very much.
Yeah.
It's not a huge fall off at 10 there. So I'll see him as a wide receiver 1 on a lot of my teams.
Yeah. Tight end position. They just drafted Brock Bowers at 13. Is that correct?
I think so. I think,
believe.
Yeah. So the Broncos would have drafted just ahead of him, and they took Bo Nix. So that was 6, all of the main quarterbacks gone that the Raiders might have taken if they had fallen to them. So they drafted Brock Bowers. He's being ranked as tight end 13. And this might be one of the first times I ever draft a rookie tight end in fantasy, because tight end 13 is going to be it's going to be a double-digit round pick, and you can cut those guys after 2 weeks if it doesn't work out. So I think the hype for him might start rising as the summer goes on, and people will say, well, he was a first-round pick tight end. I got to have him. But it's just very rare for rookie tight ends to pop off in fantasy.
Yeah. That was going to be my question is, do you think Brock Bowers is going to be the new Kyle Pitts? Everybody gets very excited, but is he actually going to pan out for fantasy?
I think he's a better player than Kyle Pitts at tight end, but I'm also not a big-time tight end scout. I don't want to die on that hill.
Yeah.
Don't draft him.
So you're saying there's a better chance that he is bait than great, is what you're saying.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But he's also not being in past years. I think Kyle Pitts was like a 6th round pick as a rookie. Brock Bowers isn't going at that price, so I would be okay with drafting him going much later.
Yeah. Could be a cheap pickup if you're in an auction round just to have him in your back pocket kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big 3 takeaway from this team. Number 1, Devontae Adams.
Devontae Adams is still good. He's still great.
Good.
Number 2, just avoid the running backs.
Hmm.
It's every year there's these guys in rounds 4 or 5 of fantasy draft where people are saying I'm getting a great value RB2, and like most of the time you're not. Sometimes they hit, but most of the times they don't, and you just wasted a pick. I would feel so much safer taking anyone else there.
Yeah. Would you take Gardner Minshew as a backup, as a number 2 in the 2 QB league?
Yeah, absolutely. If he's named the starter, yeah, because he'll be $1 or the equivalent in a snake draft.
Yeah. If Aiden O'Connell ends up being their QB1, do you touch that or just let it ride? Yeah.
Similar. I mean, you'd be filling them in as a spot starter, pretty much.
Yeah. And you have Devontae Adams there. You have the possibility of Brock Bowers being good. You have at least one really, really good wide receiver option. So
yeah, and that can be enough for a QB2.
Yeah. Any other notes on the Las Vegas Raiders?
Nope.
Stop making the ghost of John Madden cry. Figure it out.